Joining us, I'm Ryan with Sports Stuff Hub, and we are covering our Fantasy Football League, our SSH GOAT League. This is group number 2. Their draft will be starting in approximately 20 minutes. It is 5:55 Pacific time right now, which means it is 8:55 on the East Coast. Our draft begins at 6:15 Pacific, 9:15 East time. So we're going to be bouncing back and forth on our screen here. So I have multiple screens here in front of me, so you guys see, and then behind me is our overall board, and I'll be trying to give updates on that. I'll be covering updates here as well as available players, and I'll be doing a little bit of analysis of everybody's picks. I'm not playing in this league. I'm just here to roast everybody and give some insight as to why maybe they're picking that. So we'll be covering all of that. I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between the screen you see here with me on it, and you also will be seeing our draft board screen. That I'm switching to right now. Every time I switch over, it's going to take just a few seconds because it's going to ask to reboot. It's basically rebooting the draft program every time, unfortunately. I'm going to try to see if I can figure out a way around it. For tomorrow night. I might just put a camera on the draft board itself, because it's not very easy for me to read the way it is either. I can't put it up on two different computers. So as you can see there on the screen, we have about 16 and a half minutes to go until draft time. And as I said, I'll be covering it all. If you can see here, I'm not 100% sure if you can see my mouse. I don't believe you can. So there's the overall board right now. It's selected as all players. I'll be going through and rotating through the available players and who's picking who. As you can see, we have our draft order has been set. And we start off with Team McCarter as starting off number 1, Michael McCarter. He's getting the first overall pick. Team number 2 is Nick Frank. Pick number 3 is going to Greg Frieders. Pick number 4 is going to Chad Nowak. Pick number 5 going to Riley Peterson. Pick number 6 come on. Pick number 6 is going to Anthony Ruiz. Pick number 7 to Brian McCarter. Pick number 8 is going to Seth Weinmiller. Pick number 9 going to Chris Poirier. And pick number 10 is going to Jake from State Farm. Just kidding. Jake Moreno. As you see there, Jake's spot is actually the league manager spot. He has split the spot. I should say it's a split spot with ourselves running the league, and then he's actually running the spot. He has no league manager responsibilities. He is purely just there to run the team. So he's just another. He's just like the rest of the spots. He has taken that spot, so we have an active participant in there. This is a 10-team league, as you can see here, and this is snake draft style. So the teams that I just mentioned, the order that they're in, it comes back from starting here, starting at number 10 down through number 1 over here. And it is, how many rounds are we at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So it looks like 15 rounds we're going to have. So just over 13 minutes, just under 14 minutes, I should say. So the first thing I'm going to mention is the order that's in here. This is all pre-done by ESPN, so there is nothing as far as unless Jake went through and changed this, because I'm logged in. Jake having this spot, he could have maneuvered the order, but all this is doing is stating who is the top players in here, and he can change it at any time. But we're gonna have it set up as all currently to start things off, but we're going to be changing this so we can see the available quarterbacks. So this is going to give you all the quarterbacks that are available, and it's going to give you their overall rank. Now this is not their rank by quarterback, this is their rank by overall fantasy football rank. As you can see here, Tom Brady coming in at number 44. Now that's overall, not quarterback rank number 44. So we move over to running backs. And as you can see there, David Johnson falls in at number 1, Le'Veon Bell at number 2. Those are the top two anticipated backs overall. The top 2 positions coming off the board. They're predicting to be Le'Veon Bell at number 2 and David Johnson at number 1. And a lot of that boils down to the points format that we have. We are set up at a half point per reception, which makes running backs a little bit more valuable because running backs not only are carrying the rock quite a bit, but then they're also catching passes out of the backfield. So as they're doing that, they're accruing points as well. So if we have David Johnson coming in at number 1, Le'Veon Bell coming in at number 2. Each one of them had more than 50 receptions last year, close to 1,000 yards on each of their parts on the receiving side as well. So we're talking 1,000-yard rusher, and we're talking maybe 800 yards in receptions or in receiving yards as well. But if they're knocking down another 50 to 75 receptions, we're talking it being another 25 to upwards of potentially 50 points if they have 100 receptions as well. So you're talking, let's say, 1,200 yards. So 1,200 rushing yards. So right there on average, that's 120 points. Now let's add in another 800 receiving yards. So there's another 80 points. So now we're talking 200 points overall. Well, if you add in 50 receptions, that's another 25 points right there. So we're talking 225 points for running back. Now, there's all the bonuses as well. You know, a rushing touchdown at 40 yards out, rushing touchdown at 50 yards out. The rushing bonus for 100 to 199 yards gives you a 2-point bonus. A rushing for 200 plus yards is another 2-point bonus. So, I mean, there's all kind of multipliers. So we're talking, I tried to set this up so that we could be a higher scoring format. So we could be pushing 300 plus points for a running back when all said and done, which is not unheard of. If you remember the days back in the early 2000s, LaDainian Tomlinson on one hand, you had Clinton Portis on the other, and those two were electric. You know, getting 4 touchdown games, 150 yards to 200-yard games, receiving out of the backfield as well, especially LaDainian Tomlinson. He was a beast to catch the ball out of the backfield. So he's a very versatile back, dual threat. So now we're getting back into that realm after we saw the running backs really start to dive off over a few years span up until about 2013 with the emergence of Le'Veon Bell, and then 2015 with the emergence of David Johnson at the end of the year. We really had the running back position dive off because it became a passing league. So a lot of people would just stick 8 men in the box and shut down the running backs, because once LaDainian Tomlinson really started to go downhill as far as his production, everything really changed on the running back scope. So now we're getting, as you can see here, we're going to switch back over to the screen. As you can see here, you're getting more into the David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, Ezekiel Elliott. You're getting a lot of these guys. DeMarco Murray is another big one. Melvin Gordon was really hot last year until he suffered his injury, and things kind of deteriorated pretty hardcore for him after that. So going back to our screen here, you're going to see our list once it changes back over. So this takes just a few seconds to change this over and reboot every time, because that's how it's going to have to be this time. Like I said, I'm going to try for tomorrow night's draft. I'm going to try to maybe get a camera to hit on the computer instead of trying to reboot this every time. But what we're going to do this season is we're going to have a Tuesday broadcast. Every Tuesday, we're going to be doing a broadcast starting around 4:30 in the afternoon Pacific time. So that's going to be 7:30 on East Coast. What we're going to do is we're going to be covering the week before. So we're going to be covering everything that wrapped up throughout the weekend of fantasy football. We're going to be covering our league. We're also going to be covering NFL updates as well, injury updates, that kind of stuff. So it's going to be our broadcast for the season is going to be on Tuesdays at approximately 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 East Coast. So we're getting down to it, guys. Just under 8 minutes to go. So obviously we have no draft summary yet, just because the draft hasn't started yet. But we will be covering a little bit of everything, and then we're going to go back through as people are picking. We're going to go through and look at their roster moves. We're going to take a look at who's picking where, and we're also going to roast a couple of the guys on here as well. It never fails every year. There's always somebody that's picking oddball this, oddball that, and you're just scratching your head going, what are you doing? So we're going to be blasting some people on here as well, which should be kind of fun. All these guys are good guys. So nobody's going to take anything personally on this, anyways. At least I hope they don't. So we're going to be enjoying this. We're going to be having some fun. All right, so we're getting down there. Just under 7 minutes to go. As I mentioned before, if you're just getting in with us, so Michael McCarter, Team McCarter currently listed as, which it sounds like he's going to try to change his name. Team McCarter has the #1 overall pick. Michael McCarter has the #1 overall pick. So it's giving him, it gave him basically about an hour to get things set up for him, because they do the random, roughly, I think it's right at an hour before the draft starts. So he's got a nice, long time to make his choice here. I mean, it's going to be tempting whether it's David Johnson or Le'Veon Bell. I'm kind of curious here. Let's jump over to wide receiver since we didn't hit that yet. I want to see what they have for the wide receiver rankings in here. All right, wide receivers. Antonio Brown sitting in the number 1 spot at 3rd overall. Odell Beckham Jr. sitting at 4th overall, number 2 for wide receivers. Julio's at number 3 at 5 overall. Not a bad top 3. Yeah, I would probably change around a few of these in the top. Let's look at the top. Rounding out the top 5, Jordy Nelson at number 4, Mike Evans is the 5th ranked wide receiver, with AJ Green coming in at 6. AJ Green's been a monster the last couple of years. If it wasn't for injuries, I fully believe that AJ Green would have come in the top 3 last year. He was just dominating the fantasy numbers last year. Michael Thomas in at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So Michael Thomas in at 7, Brandon Cooks in at 8, and Doug Baldwin in at 9, T.Y. Hilton in at 10, Amari Cooper in 11. I think Doug Baldwin is overranked right here. I've had this discussion with a few people the last couple seasons, and I had it several times already this offseason. Doug Baldwin is a very clutch receiver. He's the guy that when you're looking to make a play, he's going to help make that play for you. He reminds me a lot of a Hines Ward. That's the type of receiver I look at Doug Baldwin as. Doug Baldwin's not going to win your fantasy championships for you. He's not going to win your weeks for you, except maybe 3 or 4 weeks out of the season where he gets that hot streak. Last season, looking at his breakdown for stats, he was tearing it up for about 4 weeks. And then he kind of went and disappeared for a few weeks. So Doug Baldwin, not exactly what I would put in the top. I wouldn't put him in my top 10. I think there's a lot of guys that could rank in top 10 above him. Amari Cooper would be one. Des Bryant I see being a bigger threat. I would also T.Y. Hilton. Here's the problem I have with T.Y. Hilton is T.Y. Hilton's a phenomenal receiver. Great talent. He's got some speed with him. He's got very good hands. He's a playmaker. He can score from long distances, and he can run the quick short routes. Problem is who's throwing him the ball. Andrew Luck's been hurt the last couple of years, so I don't trust the Colts receivers just because who's their quarterback right now? Let's look at it realistically. Jacoby Brissett just got traded to the Colts, and if he's going to be their primary receiver starting off, then we already are looking at it as where's their backup quarterback before him? If he is coming in and taking that spot in a matter of a week, then that tells you that they didn't have any faith in their backup quarterback to begin with. What is he doing on the team? So I think Jacoby Brissett is talented, but I also think that Jacoby Brissett had success last year under Bill Belichick when Tom Brady was suspended. I think part of the success he had was based on being in Bill Belichick's system. Because let's look back a few years ago. Bill Belichick has had other quarterbacks when Tom Brady's been out. Let's go back to, what was it, the 2012 season? Is that what it was? Or it might have been even earlier than that. Matt Castle, prime example. It was way earlier than that, 2008 I think it was. Matt Castle's a prime example. Matt Castle took the Patriots to, 12-4. Got a big contract offer from the Chiefs, bolted, and look what happened to his career since. Tom Brady is still throwing and winning NFL championships. Matt Castle is, if anywhere, is still a backup in the league. I don't even know if he's in the league at the moment. I would have to check. Point being, New England throws a lot of guys in there, and they can do well. Right now, Jimmy Garoppolo is, the waiting in the wings quarterback that they don't want to let go because he is a competent quarterback. So, Jacoby Brissett had success playing, came off of a 4 or 5 touchdown preseason game, got traded to the Colts, and there you go. We'll see what happens with that. Again, I don't know if I would put a lot of hype on T.Y. Hilton right now until we're for sure that Andrew Luck can come back healthy, because the last time when he had a shoulder issue, Andrew Luck played like, let's be honest, garbage. When he has a shoulder issue, garbage. All right, we're down to under 15 seconds left in the pre-draft. All right, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And it is time for our 2017 SSH GOAT Draft. Group number 2, starting it off. Michael McCarter making pick number 1. Let's see who he goes with. Michael McCarter takes David Johnson, running back, Arizona Cardinals. David Johnson. Pick number 2 goes to Le'Veon Bell, running back, Pittsburgh Steelers. Pick number 3, Antonio Brown, Pittsburgh Steelers, wide receiver. Pick number 4, Julio Jones, Atlanta Falcons, wide receiver. So first 4 picks, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers already off the board. Pick number 5, Odell Beckham Jr., wide receiver, Giants. Pick number 6 is coming in for Anthony Ruiz, taking LaShawn McCoy, running back, Buffalo Bills. LaShawn McCoy. Going out on a limb right there and taking him over a wide receiver. All right, I can dig it. Who we got coming next? So we've got pick number 7 coming in for Brian McCarter. Brian McCarter. Brian McCarter is taking Aaron Rodgers in the first round. Aaron Rodgers goes in the first round, pick number 7. Dang, that was unexpected. Alrighty. Alright, so Seth Weinmiller is up at pick number 8. Aaron Rodgers going in the first round. Alright, pick number 8 going to Seth. Devonta Freeman, running back, Atlanta Falcons. Chris Poyer coming in at number 9. First round, pick number 9. His selection, Melvin Gordon, running back, Los Angeles Chargers. All right, and pick number 10 is Jake from State Farm. And he ends up taking A.J. Green, wide receiver for the Bengals, with his pick number 10. So rounding back, coming back on the snake draft, we've got Jake from State Farm selecting again, pick number 1, second round. And he takes Dez Bryant. Nice call. Dez Bryant coming out of the Dallas Cowboys wide receiver. Jake taking A.J. Green and Dez Bryant locking up his wide receiver positions. Nice call. Seth is up right now. Pick number 12. The second pick of the second round goes Mike Evans, Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receiver. I like that pick. Mike Evans is going to do well this year. I think they've got a loaded team this year, and he's going to look good this year. All right, Seth coming in. Seth is taking... Seth takes Jay Ajayi, running back for the Dolphins. Seth getting his running back out of the way. Next, we got Brian McCarter coming in. Brian McCarter's taking pick number 4 of the second round. So Jay Ajayi coming off the board in the second round. Ajayi comes off the board before DeMarco Murray and before Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley, not shocking with how he played last year. Granted, I still think that Gurley is going to have a much better year this year than he did in last year. I think he'll be a lot closer to how he played his rookie season. Brian McCarter as team name Acute Bronchitis. And he takes Jordan Howard, running back, Chicago Bears. Anthony Ruiz is up now. At pick number 5 in round 2, Anthony Ruiz. Anthony takes Jordy Nelson. And then next off the board right away goes Michael Thomas, wide receiver for the Saints. And then Team Man Cave takes Ty Montgomery, running back for the Green Bay Packers. Technically, he can go either way because he was originally a wide receiver, but I do believe they have him listed to pure running back now. All right, next we've got Can You Dig It coming up. Can You Dig It with Greg Frieders. So Greg took number 3 in the first round, and he selected Antonio Brown. And he comes back with another wide receiver and takes Doug Baldwin, Seahawks wide receiver. Now we go over to Nick Frank. Nick Frank taking Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley for his second round pick. Now let's take a look over here at Team McCarter, which is picking back-to-back picks. So Michael McCarter has picks number 19 and number 20 and 21 now. So he's got back-to-back picks. He had the number 1 overall pick, picking David Johnson as number 1. Let's see who Michael takes with his second round pick, rounding out the second round of the fantasy draft. And then he's going to be taking a back-to-back spot again because this is a snake draft. So he'll get back-to-back picks with the number 1 pick in the third round. Who is he going to go with? Is he going to take a gamble on Brandon Cooks? Maybe he'll go running back again with DeMarco Murray. Amari Cooper is still out there. He could go tight end. Gronkowski is still out there yet. He hasn't been selected. That's odd. Typically, Gronk goes first, second round, usually. And Michael McCarter goes Amari Cooper, Oakland Raiders, wide receiver, Amari Cooper. And then back-to-back in the third round. All right, then he goes with Rob Gronkowski as pick number 3. All right, so second pick of this round is going to Greg Frieders. And he takes Brandon Cooks. And then Ezekiel Elliott flies off the board. Ezekiel Elliott didn't go till the third round. Third round. And then comes DeMarco Murray right after him. DeMarco Murray and Ezekiel Elliott lasted until the third round, guys. Wow. All right, I'm going to see if I can find who's picking Super Mario. There we go. Super Mariota right there. So Super Mariota's turn to pick. This is the third round. So this is Riley Peterson. Riley selected Odell Beckham Jr. in the first round. And then Michael Thomas in the second. So he's got 2 wide receivers that he grabbed already. So expect him to take a running back here with 2 wide receivers already on the board. He's getting down there in time. He's only got 17, 16, 15 seconds left for Riley. Uh-oh. Could be getting... Oh, and he takes Lamar Miller, Houston Texans running back. And then we got Anthony Ruiz coming next. Team Ruiz. And Anthony selected LaShawn McCoy and Jordy Nelson already, so he's got one running back, one wide receiver. Let's see who he takes in round 3. He could go either way. Heck, he could even go quarterback at this point. Nobody's going to hate you for drafting a quarterback in the 3rd round, although I would still say maybe 4th round would be about where I would be targeting a quarterback. So this is pick number 26, and he selects Christian McCaffrey, rookie running back for the Carolina Panthers. Christian McCaffrey over to Anthony Ruiz. And we got acute bronchitis up next. And he takes Terrell Pryor. Terrell Pryor going off the board. So acute bronchitis taking Terrell Pryor. And then next we get T.Y. Hilton coming off the board. T.Y. Hilton. All right, Uncle Rico's quarterback camp. Chris with his Melvin Gordon and Mike Evans selections already. I like this team already. I'm liking that. Let's see who he goes here. He could go either way, running back or wide receiver, with who's left on the board. I see a Leonard Fournette still sitting there. Demaryius Thomas is still there. DeAndre Hopkins is still out there. There's a lot of draft capital still sitting out there. Top guys that are still available. Let's see who Chris selects with this pick. So Chris getting Melvin Gordon and Mike Evans again. Very solid picks. And he goes with Isaiah Crowell out of Cleveland. Isaiah Crowell, Cleveland running back. Nice selection. Now we're back over to Jake from State Farm. And he's got back-to-back picks, and he takes Kareem Hunt, running back, rookie running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. And then in a stunner, Tom Brady starts off round 4. Tom Brady coming off the board for Jake. Team Dallas Greatness. Jake selecting Tom Brady to open round 4. Now we're back over to Chris with Uncle Rico's quarterback camp. Let's see who Chris goes after taking Isaiah Crowell last round. And he goes with Alshon Jeffrey, the new wide receiver for the Eagles. Carson Wentz's new target. And then Leonard Fournette comes off the board, the 3rd pick in the 4th round. He lasted way longer than I expected him to. All right, then we got acute bronchitis coming up for pick number 4. Pick number 4 in the 4th round after drafting Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Howard, and Terrell Pryor. Acute bronchitis is on the board here. Let's see who Brian McCarter goes with. So Leonard Fournette just came off the board. So already in the 4th round, we've seen Tom Brady, Alshon Jeffrey, and Leonard Fournette. That's the first 3 picks of the 4th round. Tom Brady at least lasted till round 4. So he's already got Aaron Rodgers. I don't expect Brian to take a quarterback again, being only the 4th round. I could see him jumping on maybe a DeAndre Hopkins. Carlos Hyde is still out there. Marshawn is still out there. Dalvin Cook, and he goes with Marshawn Lynch. Brian McCarter taking Marshawn Lynch 4th pick in the 4th round. All right, back over to Anthony Ruiz. Taking Drew Brees. Anthony Ruiz, the Saints fan, selecting Drew Brees. And we go back over to Super Mariota, Riley. And while we're waiting for Riley to make his selection, I want to make sure that I send a shout out to Ultra Pro Supplies for donating some of our weekly prizes that we're going to be giving away. Ultra Pro International. We've got a bag sitting here to my left that you'll be seeing once the camera switches back over. Ultra Pro, big thank you to one of our sponsors. We've got a few more that I'm waiting on confirmation from, and then we'll be giving away some other weekly prizes as well. We have some end-of-year prizes that 100% of the money for the league fees is going towards boxes of sports cards. And Riley selects Carlos Hyde, followed by Dalvin Cook coming off the board, number 7, pick number 7 by Team Man Cave. That'd be Chad Noack. All right, so we've got Can You Dig It up on the board right now. Greg Frieders. And he selects DeAndre Hopkins. Followed by Matt Ryan coming off the board. Now we're back into the number 1 spot. Team McCarter. Michael McCarter. Now Michael McCarter's rounding out round 4, so he's the last pick in round 4, and then he gets a back-to-back pick starting off round 5. Team McCarter. So reviewing Michael McCarter's picks here. So he's got David Johnson as the number 1 overall pick. Then he picked up Amari Cooper with his 2nd pick, and then Rob Gronkowski with his 3rd. Now he gets his 4th pick ending round 4. And we'll see where he goes with the final pick in the 4th round. There's a lot at stake here. There's sports cards, we've got supplies, we've got some other great prizes. Some other great prizes coming up. Michael McCarter's got 14, 13, 12, and he makes his selection. Keenan Allen, wide receiver, Los Angeles Chargers, rounding out round number 4. So now Michael gets another pick starting off round 5. He's the number one overall pick round 5. So now that he's got his 4th spot chosen, now he can make another spot starting it off for round 5. So it's still sitting at a Keenan Allen for the last selection. Michael McCarter's got just a hair over 30 seconds. Let's see if he waits until the very last moment to make his selection, down to 25 seconds. "14 seconds. Adrian Peterson coming off the board. Adrian Peterson coming off the board. Round at number 5, number 1 overall pick, round 5. We got Nick Frank. Nick has been silent in this draft. We're going to take a look at his. He's slowly been making some solid selections. And he takes Michael Crabtree. So with the number 2 overall pick, Nick Frank has taken Le'Veon Bell. Then he ends up with Todd Gurley, Brandon Cooks, Michael Crabtree, and Matt Ryan as his quarterback. Michael Crabtree was a 5th round pick. Michael Crabtree. Alright, so Greg Frieders is back on the board now. And Greg selects a tight end, Greg Olsen from the Carolina Panthers. Next coming off the board is Devontae Adams flying off. And then Anthony Ruiz takes Travis Kelce. Excuse me, that wasn't Anthony Ruiz. That was Super Mariota taking Travis Kelce. Now Anthony Ruiz, Demaryius Thomas. Acute bronchitis is now on the board. That was a flurry of selections. Guys had those ready to go. All right, acute bronchitis. Brian McCarter back up with his 5th round pick. And he's already got Aaron Rodgers for his quarterback. He got Jordan Howard, Marshawn Lynch for his running backs, and Terrell Pryor at wide receiver. So Brian's hitting 5th round here. My guess would lean towards a wide receiver since he's still thin there. And there's still some really good wide receivers on the board. Golden Tate still on the board. Larry Fitzgerald still on the board. Emmanuel Sanders is still on the board. Jarvis Landry, Kelvin Benjamin, Jamison Crowder. I mean, there is some good talent at wide receivers still sitting out there. Tyreek Hill. And he goes tight end. Jordan Reed, Washington Redskins. Brian McCarter goes tight end in the 5th round instead of filling the need at wide receiver. Interesting call by Mr. McCarter. All right, so next team up is... I like this team name. It's Common Wentz. This is Seth Weinmiller's team. It's Common Wentz. So he is obviously a Philly fan, and Seth is actually from Philadelphia. Makes sense. It makes Wentz. All right, so round 5, he takes Emmanuel Sanders off the board. Wide receiver, Denver Broncos. So Seth has Devonta Freeman, Jay Ajayi, T.Y. Hilton, Emmanuel Sanders, and Leonard Fournette. And then next coming off the board is Bilal Powell. And then here comes Joe Mixon off the board. Joe Mixon coming off the board already, even though Jeremy Hill is still listed as the starter. So Joe Mixon comes off before Jeremy Hill. Interesting. So Jake from State Farm, a.k.a. Jake the Great, a.k.a. Dallas Greatness, takes Joe Mixon, and now he's starting off round 6. Starting off round 6. And let's see where he goes on round 6. I have to say that was definitely a shocking pick with having Joe Mixon go already. Now that could be a massive, massive steal for him, getting him that late. But it's all going to depend on Jeremy Hill. If Jeremy Hill, I'll tell you this right now, if Jeremy Hill struggles at all, Mixon's going to step up and not look back. Now, granted, Mixon has been having legal problems, so that could hinder him as well. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. So, looking at Dallas Greatness, Tom Brady, Kareem Hunt, Joe Mixon, A.J. Green, Dez Bryant, and now his next selection is Larry Fitzgerald, Arizona Cardinals, wide receiver. So Jake has now filled his flex position, leaving an open tight end still. Larry Fitzgerald, Arizona Cardinals wide receiver. So that puts Uncle Rico's quarterback camp back on the board. Uncle Rico. So you got Chris Poirier up. Chris. Now Chris's team is spread out fairly nicely. So he's got Jets, Bilal Powell, and And apparently they're letting Forte go, so Powell is probably going to end up being the lead dog there. Melvin Gordon at running back, which I think that right there was a heck of a steal for him. I think Melvin Gordon is going to be a top 5 running back this year. And he selects Russell Wilson, quarterback from the Seattle Seahawks, in the 5th round. Excuse me, the 6th round. Russell Wilson, pick number 2 of the 6th round. All right, back up to It's Common Wentz. So we're looking back at Seth's team again. Now this is where we're going to start to get a little bit slower picks coming here, because these guys are starting to get down there as far as who's left on the rosters. And he selects Golden Tate, wide receiver for the Detroit Lions. Golden Tate coming off the board. Back over to Acute Bronchitis. Acute Bronchitis, Brian McCarter. Acute Bronchitis. Again, Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Howard, Marshawn Lynch, Terrell Pryor, and Jordan Reed. So let's see who Acute Bronchitis selects. Brian McCarter. And I'm gonna. He takes linebacker Luke Kuechly. So he goes defensive player versus filling his last wide receiver spot. He goes defensive player in the 6th round. Luke Kuechly. Martavis Bryant then comes off the board, shockingly lasting that long. Martavis Bryant is a stat machine. So Martavis Bryant comes off the board now in the 6th round. And Bryant goes to Team Ruiz, Anthony Ruiz. Good pick by Anthony Ruiz. Well done. And then Kelvin Benjamin comes off the board. And there, guys, is one guy that I think is going to end up being solid. Derek Carr comes off next, 7th pick. And then Mark Ingram, the other running back for the Saints. So Mark Ingram and Adrian Peterson both off the board now. So Derek Carr goes 6th round, number 7. Interesting. So pick number 57, Derek Carr. Then comes Jarvis Landry coming off the board next. And now we're back to Michael McCarter with his back-to-back picks, ending round 6 and starting round 7. So let's see who Michael McCarter is going to end up rolling with in this round, as he's already got a decent team since he had the number 1 overall pick. Let's take a view of Team McCarter as it stands right now. At the number 1 overall pick, Michael McCarter selected David Johnson, and now he takes his quarterback, Dak Prescott, second-year signal caller, excuse me, for the Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott. So that ended round 6, jumping into round 7 now. David Johnson at running back, Adrian Peterson at running back, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen at wide receivers, Gronk at tight end, and Dak Prescott at quarterback. So far sitting there for Michael McCarter. Overall, solid team there. I don't know if I would have gone Dak at that point. I think there's a few other quarterbacks out there that, gosh, that's a tough call. That's a tough call. I think there's a few other quarterbacks out there I would have gone with before Dak. But Dak ain't going to lose your weeks either. See, Kirk Cousins, that's the thing for me. Kirk Cousins is a stat machine as well. And I honestly would probably roll the dice on a Kirk Cousins before Dak Prescott. That's just me. Matthew Stafford is also available. Matthew Stafford, again, another stat machine. And Michael takes Thomas Rawls, running back for the Seattle Seahawks. And now we're back over to Nick Frank, Team Frank. Team Frank for Nick Frank at quarterback. He's got Matt Ryan. And he just takes his tight end need in Jimmy Graham. So he's got Matt Ryan, Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley, Brandon Cooks, Michael Crabtree, Jimmy Graham, and Jarvis Landry. And then coming off the board is Tyreek Hill going to Greg Frieders. Greg Frieders taking Tyreek Hill. And then Pierre Garçon, 49ers wide receiver, coming off the board. And that went to Team Man Cave. Now we're back over to Super Mariota, Riley Peterson. And let's get a closer look at who Riley Peterson has been selecting on his team. And he takes Marcus Mariota. Oh, wrong team. And then Doug Martin comes off the board. So Super Mariota selects Marcus Mariota. Doug Martin comes off the board next. Now we're back to Acute Bronchitis, Brian McCarter. And Brian takes Sammy Watkins. Sammy Watkins off the board. And now we're back up to It's Common Wentz. All right, so as I mentioned before, guys, we have some prizes that we're going to be giving away. I'm going to take a slight break from the draft, and I'll come back and do the recap right there. So we've got a few things. As you can see, I mentioned before, to my left here is Ultra Pro. I want a big thank you to Ultra Pro for donating us a number of supplies that we're going to be giving away. These bags right here, are these cinch bags. We're going to be giving away a few of these with the weekly prizes. We also have a large number of supplies that they donated. So all kinds of things like this, as well as one-touches. So we're going to be getting one-touches, top loaders, the semi-rigid card holders. We also have a number of boxes of 9-card pages for your albums as well. So we're going to be giving away all kinds of stuff like that. Compliments of Ultra Pro. I want to have a big thank you to them as well. You're going to find links to their website on our website as well. All updates from our Fantasy League are going to be on our website. The other big one that we've got, as I mentioned, 100% of the entry fees go towards the prizes. So starting off, we have a box of Gold Standard 2017 football. We also have a box of 2017 Donruss football. So those are going to be to choose from by the winners. And then also, we've got 2017 Origins. These are sealed hobby boxes, guys. Sealed hobby boxes. So we've got 3 groups that are going to be drafting. So we've got 3 overall prizes. And then we also are going to have a final box that will be named later. That's going to be for the overall high score. So the way this is going to work is we have 3 champions overall because we have 3 groups of teams. There's going to be 3 overall champions when the playoffs are done. How we're then going to rank the champions is in order of their overall score. Whoever has the highest overall score throughout the season is going to be the number 1 champion, then the number 2, and then the number 3. And then they're going to be able to select their boxes based on their rank. Then the overall high scorer will also get a box of hobby cards, a sealed hobby box of football cards. So that's how we're handling this. This is all going 100% of the $20 entry fee is going towards the payouts. So there's nothing left over. I'm not pocketing anything. Sports Stuff Hub is not taking anything. It's 100% going back. Then we also have our sponsors. Again, like I said, a thank you to Ultra Pro. We have a few other people that I'm not going to mention at the moment that haven't come to terms yet, but they are going to be supplying us with a few gifts as well. So we're going to be doing that as well. And word has it there might even be a jersey or 2 thrown in there. So that'll all be compliments of a few places coming up. And we'll be announcing that as the season goes as well. We are more than welcome to, or more than open to accepting sponsors throughout the season as well. They'll be getting links on our website. They'll also be getting social media advertisement as well. So we're going to be covering all that as well. So we're going to go back to our draft coverage real quick and see how things are progressing. So we are going to be doing our broadcast every Tuesday covering our football league. Oh, we got booted. Okay, guys, just give me 1 second here. We got booted. Okay, this is going extremely slow. Well, we lost our draft feed by the looks of it. If we can get this draft feed back, we will be back up and running on covering the draft. But we may have lost it. It is not letting me... It's not letting me type or anything. Yep. Alright, well, we're going to have to do this the manual way then. Alright, so I'm going to jump in. You guys are just going to have to stare at my ugly mug. We're going to mute that. Okay, so we ended with Sammy Watkins being selected. So since then, we've had Stephon Diggs drafted by Seth Weinmiller. We had Devontae Parker drafted by Chris Poirier. We had J.J. Watt, the final pick in round 7, drafted by Jake, followed by Cam Newton, the number 1 overall for pick number round number 8. Zach Ertz off the board at pick number 2 in round 8, followed by Kyle Rudolph, Kirk Cousins, Jamison Crowder, Danny Woodhead, Frank Gore, and Amir Abdullah, just chosen by Greg Frieders. So Frank Gore ended up going to Chad Noack, Team Man Cave. And by the looks of it, we may have had a stall in our software. So just give that a second to catch back up, and then we will be back live. All right, so Allen Robinson just taken off the board by Nick Frank. So we're going to run through our teams here. So we have the number 1 overall, which was Michael McCarter. So Michael McCarter's team starting off with Dak Prescott at quarterback, David Johnson, Adrian Peterson, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, Rob Gronkowski, and Thomas Rawls in his flex position. Spot number 2 was Team Frank. Matt Ryan, Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley, Brandon Cooks, Michael Crabtree, Jimmy Graham, Jarvis Landry, and then he stashed Allen Robinson on his bench already. Can you dig it? Which is Greg Frieders. Ezekiel Elliott and Mark Ingram at running backs. Wide receivers Antonio Brown, Doug Baldwin, tight end Greg Olsen, flex DeAndre Hopkins, and then he stashed Tyreek Hill and Amir Abdullah already. Jeremy Hill just came off the board for Michael McCarter. So we are in round 9 currently. So let's cover Team Man Cave. Now Chris Hogan just came off the board. Team Man Cave, Chad Noack. He's got Derek Carr at quarterback, Ty Montgomery and DeMarco Murray at running backs, Julio and Devontae Adams for wide receivers, Dalvin Cook in the flex position, Pierre Garçon and Frank Gore stashed on his bench. Super Mariota, Riley Peterson is up for our next cover, and he was pick number 4. Riley Peterson, Super Mariota, has Marcus Mariota at quarterback, Lamar Miller and Carlos Hyde at running backs, Odell Beckham Jr. and Michael Thomas for wide receivers, Travis Kelce for tight end, Kelvin Benjamin in at flex position, and Danny Woodhead on his bench. Yeah, the board, it's all screwed up. I can't do anything about it. It's not letting me enter anything in. I can't even change the screen back over to my live feed camera. So it's all screwed up. It's lagging pretty bad. A lot going on. I'm going to switch over for tomorrow night. I'm going to switch over to a newer computer that can run a little bit faster. So that should really help with the output here. Mike Gillislee comes off the board now for Team Frank, Nick Frank. All right, next team we're going to cover is Anthony Ruiz with the 6th overall pick. Anthony Ruiz has Drew Brees, LaShawn McCoy, Christian McCaffrey in at running back, Jordy Nelson and Demaryius Thomas at wide receiver, Martavis Bryant at his flex position, and on his bench he's already stashed Doug Martin and Jamison Crowder. Solid team for Team Ruiz. Acute bronchitis is the next one we're going to look at. He was the number 7 overall pick. And he is looking at Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Howard, and Marshawn Lynch for running backs, Terrell Pryor and Sammy Watkins in at wide receiver, Jordan Reed tight end, Luke Kuechly for a defensive player, and on his bench he's sitting on Kirk Cousins. There we go. We get our feedback. Thank you. All right. Welcome back to this stream right here. All right, and then Terrence West comes off the board. Shocking. You know, Terrence West, I'm surprised. Terrence West is the starting running back. I don't know if anybody realizes this. Terrence West is the starting running back for the Baltimore Ravens. Kenneth Dixon's out for the season. Danny Woodhead is currently injured, and he's coming off an ACL tear, and he's got a hamstring issue already. Terrence West is looking pretty good. All right, then Martellus Bennett off the board at tight end, and then Eric Decker, followed by Fat Rob Kelly. Shocking, Rob Kelly coming off. All right, so acute bronchitis up on the board right now. We're going to cover It's Common Wentz recap real quick. ICW, Seth Weinmiller, Devonta Freeman in at running back with Jay Ajayi, T.Y. Hilton and Emmanuel Sanders paired up together at wide receivers, followed by Kyle Rudolph at tight end. Leonard Fournette in at flex position. Golden Tate and Stephon Diggs stashed on his bench. Not a bad call. Stephon Diggs, I think, is going to be a breakout wide receiver this year. It's Common Wentz at the number 8 overall. So the number 9 overall, Uncle Rico's Quarterback Camp. I love the name. This is Chris Poirier. And starting off, Russell Wilson in at quarterback. Not my biggest fan for a pick right there. Excuse me, I'm not the biggest fan of that pick right there. I think Russell Wilson at that spot was reaching a little bit. I've seen worse. Last year, Russell Wilson went way too early. Melvin Gordon, I really like that pick. That was a solid value pick right there. Isaiah Crowell, I think, could be a big upside for him as well. Mike Evans and Alshon Jeffrey. I'm going to tell you this right now. Mike Evans is on a loaded team right now, which is going to take a lot of pressure off of him. Mike Evans is going to see 10-plus touchdowns this year. I will put money on that. Theo Riddick and Paul Perkins just both came off the board round 9, picks 7 and 8. And then followed by Bobby Wagner in at linebacker. We're back to the final pick of round 9 and the first pick of round 10 for Jake at State Farm, a.k.a. Dallas Greatness, a.k.a. Jake Marino. And he takes Brandon Marshall. So anyway, back to Uncle Rico's quarterback camp after the Alshon Jeffrey selection, which again I think is going to be big. I think that this year is going to be huge for Carson Wentz. I think he's going to have a lot better season. North Dakota State. Anyway, so Alshon Jeffrey, Zach Ertz coming right after that, and Bilal Powell, followed by Bobby Wagner. Devontae Parker stashed on his bench. Broncos defense just came off the board, heads up. First team defense coming off the board, going to Jake Moreno, a.k.a. Dallas Greatness. So after Uncle Rico's quarterback camp, we're going to right now tie into Dallas Greatness, Jake Moreno's team. Let's check in here. Jake grabbed Tom Brady as his quarterback. Now, I kind of think he reached a little bit because he took him in round 4. Or excuse me, took him in round 3. Taking a quarterback early, I would have to say that in the first 3 rounds, I would not advise taking a quarterback in any league where you're getting a PPR. Now, granted, this is only half point, but wide receivers and running backs, very big points right there. You're going to get a good quarterback even as late as round 8, 9. You look at the quarterbacks that are still on the board right now, and we are in round 10. So I'm going to cover this right now. So we are in round 10. Here's the top remaining quarterbacks still in this league. Andrew Luck, me, Jameis Winston, Matthew Stafford, and here's a shocker. Ben Roethlisberger is still on the board. Ben Roethlisberger, who's on one of the most high-powered offenses in the NFL, is still on the board. You have Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, and Martavis Bryant that are catching passes from him, and he's still on the board. He's an injury risk, I get it, but being on the board still in round 10 should never happen. Never happen. Outside of that, you also still have Phillip Rivers on the board. Phillip Rivers is a stat machine. I don't care what anybody says. He's a 4,500-yard quarterback year in and year out. Well, 4,000 to 4,500 yards. And usually 25 touchdowns. I mean, I want to say that's roughly about his average per season. You have Tyrod Taylor, Andy Dalton still on the board. Carson Wentz is still on the board. Eli Manning. Eli Manning's got a loaded team to throw to this year. Look at Eli Manning. He's got Odell Beckham Jr., Sterling Shepard, Brandon Marshall, and Evan Ingram. I mean, how is he still on the board? Carson Palmer, okay, I get it. Joe Flacco's injured. Whatever, he's a Raven anyways. But anyway, so back over to, and Deshaun Jackson, Kenny Britt, C.J. Anderson all just came off the board as well. Now, back to Jake's team. Started off with Tom Brady, which again, like I said, was a little bit of a reach. Here's a pick I really like that I think is going to pay dividends to him. Kareem Hunt, running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. Kareem Hunt, rookie. After Spencer Ware went down, it's already been announced that Kareem Hunt is going to be their #1 back. Why not? Let's do it. All right, so a few more picks just came off the board. Delaney Walker, Tevin Coleman, Willie Snead, followed by Jameis Winston finally off the board at the end of round 10. Listen to that. End of round 10. Jameis Winston came off the board. All right, back to his team. Kareem Hunt, I think, was a solid pick. Here's where I'm a little on the fence about. This could be a huge pick for him. this could be what is his downfall. Joe Mixon, because you don't know if he's actually going to be able to tote the rock yet. So at a starting running back in fantasy football on a team that has Jeremy Hill, yes, Joe Mixon can supplant. Don't get me wrong. Joe Mixon, absolutely talented guy, and he can take over Jeremy Hill. But Joe Mixon has legal issues right now. He could end up being suspended still. We don't know that yet. Jeremy Hill has had injury issues. He's also had some lack of productivity issues. But Jeremy Hill is still a solid running back, and I don't know if I would go away from taking Jeremy Hill over Joe Mixon yet. Joe Mixon's still a rookie. Next pick, and I love his wide receivers. I love his wide receivers. A.J. Green. A.J. Green, I'm telling you right now, if he plays a 16-game schedule, even if he plays a 15-game schedule because they sit him in Week 15 because they're playoff bound, which I don't know if I would go that far. But, and I'm going to interrupt that 1 second. Seahawks defense just came off the board, followed by Ben Roethlisberger. Finally, in round 11, Roethlisberger comes off the board, followed by Navarro Bowman in at linebacker. So people are starting to now take their team defenses, and they're starting to take their defensive players. Ben Roethlisberger at pick number 100. Pick number 100. Insane value, number one. The fact that he was still on the board. But I have to say that I would argue with where the rest of them left him on the board at that spot. Khalil Mack just came off the board as well, number 103. Jarrell Freeman just came off the board at pick number pick number 102 was Mack. Pick number 103 was Jarrell Freeman. Back to Jake's wide receivers. A.J. Green, if he gets 15 games, 16 games, he's top five wide receiver. He's going to put up 100-plus receptions. He's going to put up 1,200, 1,300 yards, and a dozen touchdowns. A.J. Green is a monster. Dante Moncrief just came off the board, followed by the Texans defense in at 105. Dez Bryant, I think, is technically, I would call him sleeper value for his average draft position right now. He's not going in the first 2 rounds in most drafts. I think in this one I do believe he went second round in this one. So not going first round, not going top 12, 13 picks, I think is tremendous value, because I think Dez Bryant is going to have a comeback year after his last 2 years where I would call him disappointing. But I think Dez Bryant is going to be phenomenal this year. I think they're going to be a lot more stable this year than in the last 2 years at the wide receiver position. I think Dez Bryant's going to have a comeback year this year. Larry Fitzgerald in at flex. Larry Fitzgerald's getting old. He's now getting to be a possession receiver, and that's about it. So in a PPR league, yes, he's going to be big. Larry Fitzgerald had a big season last year, but I just think, and I love Larry Fitzgerald. He's a Minnesota kid. I actually watched that kid play in high school. I think Larry Fitzgerald is going to start to see a downward trend in his production. I hope not. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Really do. Love Larry Fitzgerald. I just don't see him being starter material this year. J.J. Watt for his defensive player. Solid selection, J.J. Watt. Broncos defense could be good. They've got some holes that they've got to fill now, especially with the T.J. Ward release, which was a little shocking. Who's now over with the Tampa Bay Bucks. Cam Newton is his backup quarterback. Brandon Marshall, as I mentioned before, for the Giants, which Eli Manning is still on the board. All right, so we're going to go back over and we're going to do a little bit more in-depth again, and we're going to start with the number 1 overall pick, Team McCarter. Mike McCarter. Since we've seen quite a few spots selected now since then, Landon Collins just came off the board. So we're going to now talk. Jeremy Maclin just came off the board at number 107, and number 108, Carson Wentz comes off the board, and Carson Wentz goes to It's Common Wentz. Big shocking. So Super Mariota takes Marcus Mariota, and It's Common Wentz takes Carson Wentz. All right, so back over to Team McCarter. Mike McCarter has Dak Prescott in at quarterback. Now, I think I would have to say that there was some other talent on the board that's going to produce better than Dak Prescott will this year. And I just got done with my love fest over Dez Bryant this year. But I think Dak Prescott is not going to be as productive as, say, a Ben Roethlisberger. I actually expect this year for Carson Wentz to take the leap and outproduce Dak Prescott. So these are the two big quarterbacks from last year that everybody was high on early in the season and later in the season compared to the Paxton Lynches and the Jared Goff out there. So Dak Prescott and Carson Wentz, it was the big thing between the two of them last year. I think Carson Wentz takes the next step, whereas Dak Prescott stays about where he was. I don't see Dallas's team improving. I see some of their wide receivers improving, which all it's going to do for Dez is take away. I think it's just going to take away from what some of the other guys were producing. Some picks since Carson Wentz has been Adam Thielen, Hunter Henry, Dan Bailey. So we are now at pick number 112. So we're in the 13th. We're in the 12th round right now, excuse me. All right, so Dak Prescott anyways. I think that there was some better quarterbacks that were on the board at the time. I would have to say that I'm not a big fan of that pick. Number 1 overall, he went with David Johnson. You could go David Johnson. You could go Le'Veon Bell. 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Honestly, I think they're going to put up fairly close to identical stats. I have no doubt in my mind that the two of them are going to be neck and neck for the best running back in football, and that's bar none. Bar none. Ezekiel Elliott, talented runner. Ezekiel Elliott playing on a loaded offensive line. Pure talent. David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell. Argue with me if you want to. Stats don't lie. You have two guys who make plays. Yes, Ezekiel Elliott made some plays. He made some plays. But if you look it up, he is seeing the longest depth after picking up the ball, being handed the ball. He's got the longest gap between touching the ball and his first contact. Whereas Le'Veon Bell and David Johnson are making a lot of guys miss. They're making 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys miss. Plus the receiving capabilities out of the backfield. They're more complete. Ezekiel Elliott is getting better at blocking. I'm not saying that he's not good at it. He's getting better at it. He's improving. He's still young. David Johnson's only got 1 year on him. But David Johnson only saw part of his rookie season in at running back. David Johnson, I think, is going to take that next step. Now, I want you to think about this. David Johnson put up 1,000+ rushing yards last year and almost 1,000 receiving yards last year. And he's going to take another step forward. How scary is that? David Johnson is a monster. Been a big fan of this guy. Love dual threat running backs. Le'Veon Bell, hands down, bar none, best running back in the NFL. Argue with me on it if you want to. I don't care. You can't convince me otherwise. Le'Veon Bell can block. He can pick up blitzes. He can catch out of the backfield, and he can run. He's got moves. He's got speed. He can be wide receiver. He can be running back. Most versatile running back in the NFL. Best overall talent. Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson. No joke. I mean, it's that close. I think David Johnson can take that next step this year, and I think he does take that step this year, and they're going to be neck and neck. Unless Le'Veon can pick up another speed and a whole nother level of playing, I think him and David Johnson at the end of the year, neck and neck. I don't think there's a way you could pick one over the other at this point or at this point next year. All right, his next selection there, running back, Adrian Peterson. Now, this is where I'm going to maybe be a little bit off compared to some people. I don't think Adrian Peterson is going to produce. There's not enough touches in that backfield because they've got Mark Ingram, and they've also got Alvin Kamara they're going to try to fit in. Alvin Kamara is going to be the Darren Sproles. That's fine. There's going to be the swing passes, all this stuff. But Adrian Peterson was catching balls out of the backfield in Minnesota. So if you actually think that Adrian Peterson is going to still be catching a lot of passes out of the backfield, you're high. Adrian Peterson is going to lose touches to Mark Ingram. Adrian Peterson gets stronger as games go. He's a genetic freak. Look at what he came back from injury-wise. Adrian Peterson is not going to be as productive in a split-time situation because he's not going to be able to get going. So Adrian Peterson, I would have to say I'm down on him this year, and that's because of the split situation. Amari Cooper in at wide receiver, his number 1 wide receiver. I will say right now, I do like that pick. I'm high on Amari Cooper. I think Amari Cooper is going to, again, another one of those players, young players, that is going to take the next step. Derek Carr is another one of those guys. Amari Cooper, good selection. Keenan Allen, Los Angeles Chargers. I like Keenan Allen. My big problem with Keenan Allen is that he's constantly injured. He's been injured, I think, every year since he got drafted. And if he gets injured again this year, it's the luck of the Chargers. The Chargers already lost Mike Williams for potentially up to week 8. They're saying he might come back a little bit sooner. I don't want them to push him back because it's just going to hurt him. Mike Williams is going to be a big, big stud for the Chargers if they ease him back into it. If they push him back, he's going to have lingering issues, and he's not going to get healthy, and he's not going to be productive. Then he's going to come into next season, and he's going to have the same issue. There's a lot of receivers that have that problem, and they can't get healthy because the teams push them back. Cortisone shot, throw him back on the field. Doesn't work. Let him rest. Let him get healthy. You invested a first-round pick in him. Let him be the first-round pick once he's healthy. Then he's got Rob Gronkowski. Now, I like Rob Gronkowski for one reason. Because he's Gronk. Gronk score touchdowns. Rob Gronkowski's a beast. He's an animal. He's the #1 tight end in football when he's healthy. Another guy right here. And I think Mike McCarter's team could get decimated by injury and could leave him hanging high and dry. Rob Gronkowski, when on the field, is the best tight end in football. He's another wide receiver, but beefier. And he can block, and he can hit, and he can avoid tackles, and he can carry people into the end zone. Like the pick, but don't like the pick. Just because I don't know if Rob Gronkowski is going to make it 16 or even 15 games if they sit people out. Thomas Rawls in at running back. Here's my problem with Seattle running backs. I wouldn't touch them this year because there's so many of them. Whether it's Thomas Rawls or Eddie Lacy or Amara Darboh. Or excuse me, not Amara Darboh. Sorry, CJ Prosise, not Amara Darboh. CJ Prosise. So you have 3 running backs right there. You have Prosise, Rawls, and Lacy all fighting for a #1 spot. This is the same predicament that Adrian Peterson's in. Why on earth would you put them in your starting running back stable if they're splitting time? Now, if Thomas Rawls starts getting all the passing downs, sure. Yeah, I'd probably take him. Or if Eddie Lacy's getting all the goal line work, sure, I'd probably take him. I don't know if I'd start him, though. Moving on to Navarro Bowman. Navarro Bowman is a solid pickup at linebacker. I always like linebackers for the defensive players because one thing, tackles equals points. They're in on a tackle, they get points. Simple as that. Vikings defense. Here's another one that I think could be a sleeper this year. I think the Vikings defense could be very, very scary this year. Now, they could also be a bust this season. They're one of my top picks for boom or bust. They're either going to be lights out defense, low scoring average, or they're going to just be giving up points left and right. Sitting on his bench for Michael McCarter. If I can get scrolled down there. Sitting on his bench, Jeremy Hill. Now, again, Joe Mixon got drafted earlier. Jeremy Hill is sitting on his bench. I like Jeremy Hill sitting on his bench for one reason. He's got NFL experience. And I think Jeremy Hill will end up still, come end of the season, still be seeing some significant time, even if Joe Mixon ends up the starter. I don't know if Mixon's going to end up the starter this year, though, is where I'm leaning on it. Chris Hogan for New England, wide receiver. Hogan had some flashes last year. I don't know if I would have used a pick on him. Here is one that I think sitting on his bench, probably the smartest thing he's got. Ben Roethlisberger sitting on his bench. Dak Prescott in at quarterback. That was when he selected Dak, Ben Roethlisberger was the one I would light him up about. I do believe right now Ben Roethlisberger should be starting over him. Dak Prescott, I just don't think is going to put up the numbers to justify it. Also sitting on his bench, Jordan Matthews, the currently injured Buffalo Bills' newest acquisition. So not a bad team. I have some issues with a couple of them. All right, so Team McCarter. So now we're going to jump over to Nick Frank, Team Frank. Now some of these guys are going to change their team names, they said, once the draft happened. So Nick Frank went on I'm going to draft my starting roster and get that stuff done. He went on a tangent. Quarterback, Matt Ryan. I don't hate this pick. My only concern with Matt Ryan is going to be this year is they lost their offensive coordinator. Their offensive coordinator was a big piece of why their offense was successful last year. So, Matt Ryan, risky pick for me, but I do like it. I do like Matt Ryan. Le'Veon Bell, the number 2 overall pick. Le'Veon Bell, smart pick. Again, like I said, you could change up David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell. It's not going to matter come the end of the season unless one of them gets injured. You're solid. Here's one pick that I think he's going to get very good value on. Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley ended up drafting in the, I believe it was the 2nd round he got him in. And I think Todd Gurley is going to be a sleeper this year. And when I say a sleeper this year, I think it's going to be mostly because he's going to end up doing a lot better than he did last year. Todd Gurley burst onto the scene and lit it up in his rookie season. And he only played 12 games. I think Todd Gurley is going to come back this year with a new offense, a new coach, and I think he's going to be better. I think he's going to come back, bounce back from a bad season last year, because let's face it, the coach they had last year, not a big fan of, and he's not an offensive guy. He was a defensive-minded guy, and the St. Louis Rams, now LA Rams, had a very good defense. Now with him gone, and they have more of an offensive-minded team, I think Todd Gurley is going to tear it up this year. I expect him to put up 12 to 1,300 yards and a dozen touchdowns again. Realistic goal, not absurd. He's not going to be a top 2, but I think he could be a top 10 easily top 10 running back. All right, so his next picks for wide receiver, Brandon Cooks and Michael Crabtree. Now, the one thing I will say about Brandon Cooks, the moment he goes over to Tom Brady's offense, yes, he takes a boost in value. But he just came from Drew Brees throwing him the ball. Drew Brees is one of the best aerial quarterbacks of this last generation. So why would his value change? He's got more competition in New England. Yes, Edelman went down, but he still has to compete with Gronk. He still has to compete with Hogan, Amendola. They've got running backs that catch out of the backfield. And they just picked up Philip Dorsett. I'm not sure I'm really sold on Brandon Cooks being a true number 1 receiver now. Yes, he's a very good, talented receiver. I just don't think I would trust him to consecutively put up stats. Just because Bill Belichick's offense doesn't usually run that way anyways. It's focus on one guy, drive him home on a team. Look at how they ran LeGarrette Blount. LeGarrette Blount would do hot for a game or two, and then they'd completely pull him and run somebody else. And that's the way I think it's going to happen with their wide receivers this year. I think it's going to be focused on one, and just go around. I just see it happening, and I think Brandon Cooks' value is not going to be where everybody thinks it is. Michael Crabtree, on the other hand, Derek Carr likes to spread it out. So Michael Crabtree, I think, is going to do very well this year, along with Amari Cooper. Jimmy Graham in at tight end, and I like Jimmy Graham. He's a former University of Miami player, and I'm a big Miami Hurricanes fan. Jimmy Graham, I think, is a very talented tight end / wide receiver on a not focused on that type of team. The Seahawks are not an air it out type of team. They run the ball. They like to run the ball. They're set up to run the ball. They don't have a very good pass protection O-line, and they don't know how to truly utilize Jimmy Graham. He's had flashes here and there because they realize he's a very athletic guy, but I just don't see Jimmy Graham being a top 5 tight end. He is a top 5 tight end, absolutely. Talent-wise, I put him right behind Rob Gronkowski. I just don't know if they get him the ball more and they find a way to do it consistently, I'm all for it. But I just don't trust Seattle's offense. Jarvis Landry in at flex. Now this pick right here could pay off dividends. Jay Cutler coming back in. He seems to be a better thrower this year than he was last year, according to some of the preseason games. And I do believe that Jay Cutler is more talented than Ryan Tannehill. I think the thing that could pay off here is if Jarvis Landry does get traded away. If Jarvis Landry ends up on the Cleveland Browns, or if Jarvis Landry ends up on another team that's more offensive focused, I think he could have a huge season. So a Jarvis Landry could end up being a big steal here, especially if he ends up on another team. Khalil Mack for a defensive player. Mack's all over the field. Not a bad pick at all. I like the Khalil Mack pick. Seahawks defense just picked up Sheldon Richardson. Now granted, they got rid of a couple of guys, and they have some injury problems right now, but Seahawks defense has been fairly stout the last couple of years. I don't know if they're going to be picking up a ton of extra points on interceptions and whatnot, but they should be picking up quite a few sack points, which are a bonus as well in our league. Justin Tucker for a kicker. Yeah, kicker. On his bench, he's got Allen Robinson, Mike Gillislee. Now, Mike Gillislee is one I think is going to have a very good season this year. I liked Mike Gillislee with the Bills last year. I was really shocked that the Dolphins let him go to begin with. I think Mike Gillislee could end up being a stud this year, and I know what I just said a little bit ago about the wide receivers for New England, but I do think that Mike Gillislee is going to have a breakout year this year. Mike Wallace, again, Baltimore. Joe Flacco's been struggling. He's been injured. I don't buy it. Eddie Lacy, too up and down, and he's coming off of being a lot heavier. I don't know if he's going to be able to handle running at a lighter weight like that. And it's Eddie Lacy and a stable of running backs for the Seahawks. Eli Manning on his bench as well. Not a bad pick. He just picked him up in the final round. Eli Manning for a backup quarterback to Matt Ryan. I wouldn't hate that. All right, can you dig it? Greg Frieders. Jameis Winston in at quarterback. Not a bad pick. I think Winston's going to do very well this year. Jameis is loaded with offensive talent. Plenty of running backs. He's got a really good tight end in O.J. Howard that they drafted this year. And then they also picked up Deshaun Jackson. So now they're going to have Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson paired up together. I think he's set up for success. Ezekiel Elliott at running back. He got him in the third round. Is Elliott lasting that long is foolish. I don't care if you are worried about his suspension or not. Here's what Greg did. He drafted for the playoffs. Ezekiel Elliott is going to play in playoff time this year. If his suspension is held up, he's done and over with by midseason, and he's good to go after that. If his suspension gets delayed, that's where you got to worry about him. I don't believe it's going to happen. I think the NFL is going to end up lifting the suspension altogether, and Ezekiel Elliott's going to be another star this year. Not quite to the level of David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell, but I think he'll be the third best running back in football. He may have the running yardage, but I don't think he's going to have the receiving yardage to tie in. Mark Ingram at a starting running back, I don't know if I like that pick, just because, again, let's go back to the Adrian Peterson part. He's splitting time. He's going to get the goal line work, yes, but he's going to lose a lot of time to Adrian Peterson and Alvin Kamara. At pick number 3, he selected Antonio Brown. Can't go wrong with that pick. Antonio Brown is a stud, no matter who they put at quarterback for the Steelers. Now, granted, yes, Jarvis Landry struggles Landry Jones struggles getting the ball out, but it's Antonio Brown. They'll find a way to put a ball in the playmaker's hands. It's as simple as that. Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, hands down, need to be rostered in the first round. Doug Baldwin, starting wide receiver. Doug Baldwin is a guy who's going to either win you a week or lose you a week. I mentioned this before. I'm not a fan of the Doug Baldwin selection on a starting roster because he's too streaky. Doug Baldwin will play a really good game, a really good game, a really good game, and then he'll fall off the map for 4 weeks. Because that's how Seattle's offense runs like that. They're not a passing team. When they get hot, they get hot. Doug Baldwin had a streak of 4 weeks last year where he was tearing it up. And then he disappeared for 4 other weeks, where he had 3 catches, 4 catches, and 6 catches. But he didn't even score a touchdown during those 3 weeks. So, Doug Baldwin is my up and down guy. He's a great possession receiver, don't get me wrong. He's a very good possession receiver. I compare him to a Hines Ward, except Hines Ward was a monster at blocking. Greg Olsen in at tight end, another guy, one of the top tight ends in the league. Absolutely cannot hate that pick. DeAndre Hopkins in at flex. Nice selection here because he got DeAndre Hopkins at a very good value. So we're talking he had Antonio Brown, Doug Baldwin, and then DeAndre Hopkins in at flex. So he was at least it was his third pick, which I know it was further than that. I think he even got DeAndre Hopkins in like the 6th round. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be big this year. Mark my words, DeAndre Hopkins will be big this year. They've got better quarterback consistency this year than they had with Schmuck Oshmeiler last year. So you're going to have DeAndre Hopkins at least a top 5 receiver this year. If he's not, he's top 10. at least top 10. Now, if he's going to be consistent, that's going to be your next question, because he's going to be tearing it up. He's going to have really big games, and then he might have some fall off games, depending on how the offense is running, because Houston's struggled offensively the last couple years. So, DeAndre Hopkins is going to be one of my big breakout players from last year, obviously because quarterback position was bad. Jarrell Freeman in for defensive player. Not a bad selection. I think he homered this one a little bit just because it's a Chicago guy and Greg Frieders is a Chicago Bears fan. So I think he'll probably end up dropping Freeman at some point this season and picking up somebody who's going to get him a few more points. Because defensive player can be a 10 to 14 point average player for you if you do it right. Chiefs defense, again, this is the one more. I think he based it off of the potential for interceptions and run backs. Obviously, Marcus Peters is a ball hawk. You put in Eric Berry as well, and I think he's going to score some points off of interceptions, pick sixes. Cairo Santos, kicker. Okay, sure. Tyreek Hill on his bench. I like this pick. Hill's a playmaker. I think at some point he's going to end up having Hill in over Doug Baldwin. My personal prediction. Amir Abdullah in at running back. I think he'll probably end up with Abdullah in over Mark Ingram. Terrence West in at Baltimore. Solid pick, Greg. I think Terrence West got overlooked greatly. I honestly think that Terrence West is going to be sitting in your starting roster by week 3. Tyler Eifert in at tight end. A good filler for when Greg Olsen has bye week. And honestly, I think he could end up being trade potential for you, because Tyler Eifert is a touchdown machine. Plain and simple. Matt Forte in at the Jets for running back. It sounds like Forte is going to get traded, so this could be a boomer bust thing for Greg. I think Forte still is talented and can still run the rock. I just don't know if he's going to be anywhere where he can run the ball. All right, so the draft has now been completed. So I'm going to pull that up now. Draft. Let's see if I can get the draft history pulled up. Nope, it's already shutting me down, guys. So I'm going to go through and we're going to cover a few more of the teams real quick, and we're going to hit that, and then I'm going to call it a night, and then tomorrow I'm going to get this reset so that so we'll be able to stay on with the draft the whole time. All right, so next we're going to cover acute bronchitis. I do believe that he reached a little bit early for Aaron Rodgers. He took Aaron Rodgers in at quarterback, but I recall correctly him taking Aaron Rodgers in the 3rd round. Maybe even it was 2nd round. With Jordan Howard still on the board at running back. Jordan Howard ended up at I want to say Jordan Howard was 3rd round. And then Marshawn Lynch. I like the 2 running backs. I don't know how Lynch is going to perform quite yet, being that he was off from football all of last year, but we'll see what happens. Terrell Pryor, Washington wide receiver. I think this kid could end up being really solid. He came out of Cleveland last year, had a pretty solid season with Cleveland last year, signed over to the Redskins, who were wide receiver needy after losing Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson. So I think Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson could have big seasons this year, but I also think Terrell Pryor could have a big season in filling one of those roles, especially the Deshaun Jackson role. Sammy Watkins, LA Rams, their new acquisition. Sammy Watkins has been an injury bug, but if you look at Sammy Watkins' comparisons to in his first 3 years to Julio Jones, they're almost identical. And Julio Jones is one of the best receivers in football today. Just saying. Sammy Watkins has the potential. It could be there. Jordan Reed in at tight end, another Washington Redskin, which Jordan Reed, another one of the guys who, when he's healthy, is a very good tight end. Theo Riddick in at running back. Now, I don't know if I like the Theo Riddick pick, just because I think Theo Riddick is going to get supplanted by Amir Abdullah here shortly. Zach Zenner's also in the mix as well, but I just think that Amir Abdullah is the more talented running back out of the trio. Luke Kuechly in at linebacker. Luke Kuechly is a tackling foo, a tackling machine. So I think Luke Kuechly is going to help. Is definitely going to help acute bronchitis in his weekly scoring. Jaguars defense, not bad. I think it's a little risky play, but I do think they could be solid. Mason Crosby in at kicker. Now, here's one that I like. Kirk Cousins is his backup quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is a solid quarterback, but I don't know if I would have grabbed Kirk Cousins with having Aaron Rodgers. Kirk Cousins is going to be that quarterback that's going to compete with Aaron Rodgers for points on a weekly basis, because Kirk Cousins throws long ball, and the way this league is set up, 40-yard and 50-yard plus touchdowns, bonus points. I think Kirk Cousins is going to be right there with Aaron Rodgers, which is going to make acute bronchitis really question his starting quarterback every week. Mentioned earlier, Deshaun Jackson, so he's got Deshaun Jackson on his bench, as well as Jeremy Maclin, new Baltimore Ravens wide receiver. He's also got the handcuffed Duke Johnson sitting in there for the running back for the Cleveland Browns. And then Zay Jones, which could be the surprise wide receiver coming out of Buffalo. Buffalo's starting to clear house. Looks like they're in rebuild mode. And I think Zay Jones could end up being a solid pickup. Let's jump over and take a look at Super Mariota's team. Starting off with Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota was a top 5 fantasy quarterback last year until he got hurt. So if Marcus Mariota can stay healthy, Marcus Mariota could pay off big time. Lamar Miller in at running back. Not sure I'm a big fan of that one. I actually hope Donta Foreman supplants him at starter right there. Carlos Hyde, another one that I would be a little leery about drafting, because the rumors coming out of San Francisco 49ers camp is that they're trying to trade Carlos Hyde, and they believe Joe Williams is the future. Wide receivers, I do think that Super Mariota is sitting stellar at wide receivers. Odell Beckham Jr., provided Odell Beckham Jr. can stay healthy, one of the most talented wide receivers in football currently. Michael Thomas, another one here. Michael Thomas is basically going to be the lone stud for the Saints, especially with Willie Snead being suspended for a few games. Travis Kelce in at tight end, again, the safety blanket for Alex Smith, and I do believe that Travis Kelce is going to see a big producing season this year. Here's a pick that I think is going to pay off huge. Flex position, Kelvin Benjamin for the Carolina Panthers. Kelvin Benjamin has been actually looking really good despite all the comments about his weight coming into season. Kelvin Benjamin is 6'5". He's a big guy. He can out-jump most defenders. Kelvin Benjamin at least is going to be a touchdown machine for goal line stances. Now, whether or not he's going to be able to run a full-on route tree, he's not going to beat you on go routes and stuff, but I do believe he's going to put up 90 receptions, a dozen touchdowns. Benardic McKinney in at linebacker for him for the Houston Texans. Not a bad one. Not sure I would have gone that route, just because I don't think he's going to have the tackles. And then Texans defense as well, which not a bad play, putting your defensive player and your team defense same team. That's actually kind of a smart move. Kickers, Stefan Gostkowski. Kicker, sure. Danny Woodhead on the bench. I'm not sure about this one. I don't think Danny Woodhead is going to end up doing a whole lot this year. I think he's going to end up injured most of the season. Eric Decker coming in as well. Tevin Coleman, Randall Cobb, and Carson Palmer. All right, so I think I covered pretty much everybody. All 10 teams. All right, so I'm going to sign off. We're going to be back tomorrow night. We have another draft starting tomorrow night, which is league number 1, group number 1. And that draft is at tomorrow at 5:15 Pacific time, 8:15 Eastern. So we're going to be back doing that tomorrow. I'm going to try to have my computers flopped over so that I can get everybody covered and get everybody in and get all the get all the information put up. I'm gonna get the computers swapped over so that I can actually get everything running, because right now we're running into lag issues between one of the computers, because the computer that's right now running everything is actually the worst of the two computers. It was just, I just did it because all this stuff was already on that computer. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed tonight. I'm Ryan with Sports Stuff Hub, and we're gonna be back tomorrow night with our SSH GOAT League Group Number 1 draft coverage tomorrow night. We're gonna start at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Excuse me, 4:45 p.m. Pacific time. 7:45 p.m. Eastern time. So again, Ryan with Sports Stuff Hub, and you have a great night.